What if I told you that everything you believed about nighttime security in ancient settlements is untrue? Many people imagine Native American life as one of constant anxiety and vulnerability in the face of the wild. In reality, indigenous peoples developed unique defense systems that worked far more effectively than any locks. Are you ready to learn the truth about how the indigenous peoples of North America slept without high fences or sturdy locks? Their peace of mind was based not on brute force, but on a profound understanding of the landscape and the habits of the forest inhabitants. The placement of teepees or wigwams in a camp was never random or haphazard. The entrance to a dwelling always faced east so that the first rays of the sun would wake the warriors and give them an advantage. Special alarm traps made of dry branches and bones were often laid out around the settlement. These would rattle at the slightest touch. The dogs living in the community had a keen sense of smell and were the first to signal the approach of a stranger. Even the direction of the wind was taken into account when choosing a place to spend the night, so that the camp's scent would not give away its location. Watch the video to the end, and you'll learn how architecture and knowledge of nature created an invisible shield around sleeping people. The secret, passed down from generation to generation, lies in the ability to read the night wind and shadows. The nomadic tribes of the Great Plains did not erect monolithic stone walls around their camps. They used the features of the terrain and the direction of air currents to create an intangible barrier. Dwellings were positioned with strict consideration of prevailing wind patterns. This allowed any extraneous sound to travel freely between the teepee cones. The night wind served as the most reliable conduit for the slightest rustle in the absolute silence of the prairie. A wide strip of dry grass or low shrubs was always deliberately left around the campsite. This natural barrier worked better than any complex mechanical warning system. The dried stalks snapped and crunched loudly under the feet of any stranger. On the nighttime prairie, this distinct sound carried for hundreds of meters in all directions. The camp's inhabitants learned to instantly distinguish the natural rustle of the wind from the heavy footsteps of outsiders. The camp's location near the river also had deep tactical significance. The murmur of the water created a constant background noise, masking quiet conversations within the settlement. At the same time, the water surface perfectly reflected sounds from the opposite bank. Any splash or crack of branches near the water served as a reliable alarm signal. Night watchmen listened intently for changes in the river's familiar acoustics. The shape of the dwellings themselves played an important role in sound propagation. The smooth surface of the stretched animal hides reflected sound waves in a particular way. The distance between the tents was calculated so as not to create sound traps. The sound of footsteps was reflected multiple times off the walls and amplified in the center of the camp. Sleeping people could hear the approach of uninvited guests long before they appeared. The ground around the tents was often cleared of large stones and branches. The flat, compacted surface amplified the vibrations from heavy footsteps. In dry weather, the hard ground acted like a giant membrane. People slept on the ground, which allowed them to sense the slightest vibrations in the soil. The approach of a large group of people could be felt by the body long before it was detected by the ear. In some cases, thin straps made of rawhide were stretched around the camp. These straps were positioned low to the ground in the tall grass. By brushing against such a barrier, a person would inevitably break the silence of the night. The straps could be tied to dry, hollow gourds or bundles of bones. Such an improvised bell would emit a sharp sound at the slightest tension. Every detail of the camp was subject to strict rules of acoustic security. Inside the settlement, perfect silence was maintained at night. It was forbidden to speak loudly or throw heavy objects on the ground. This created the necessary contrast to detect any foreign sounds. Silence became the primary tool for survival in the endless steppe. Setting up such acoustic barriers required a deep understanding of the physics of sound. Every night, each camp turned into a massive natural resonator. People slept peacefully, relying on the reliability of this invisible barrier. The absence of walls was compensated for by the entire system's incredible sensitivity to the slightest changes in the environment. We'd love to hear your thoughts on these natural alarm systems. Please share them in the comments and be sure to subscribe to our channel. I will reveal the best-kept secret of the Lakota and Cheyenne camp layouts. Camps on the Great Plains were always arranged in the shape of a huge, perfect circle. This shape had no weak spots or vulnerable corners. The outer perimeter consisted of densely placed dwellings forming a continuous line. The circular layout created a natural barrier, replacing a wooden palisade. The only entrance to this circle always faced strictly east. This orientation was related not only to tradition, but also to security. The rising sun immediately illuminated the entrance, depriving strangers of the opportunity to hide in the shadows. Night watchmen could easily monitor a single narrow passage. Any attempt to enter from the other side required getting through a dense ring of tents. Inside the large circle, a second inner circle of dwellings was often formed. This is where the councils of elders were held and the tribe's most valuable resources were stored. This zoning created additional difficulties for any uninvited guest. To reach the center, one had to pass through a labyrinth of narrow passages. Every movement within the circle was easily tracked by the guards. The distance between the tents was small enough to prevent anyone from slipping through. If necessary, the gaps were further blocked with bundles of brushwood or carts. The leather covers of the teepees could be lifted for ventilation, providing a clear view. People sleeping near the walls monitored the space between the dwellings even at night. The camp was a single living organism, reacting to any intrusion. The movement of the camp itself was also part of the security system. Camps never stayed in one place for too long. This deprived the enemy of the opportunity to draw up an accurate map of the settlement. Each new camp had its own unique features, dictated by the new terrain. Constant relocation made the tribe elusive to pursuers. The open space in the center of the circle allowed the camp to be seen through. On moonlit nights, this area became a well-lit arena. Any shadow in the central square instantly attracted attention. The internal layout eliminated blind spots or dark corners. The transparency of the space was key to the timely detection of threats. All essential supplies were stored inside the teepee or at the very center of the circle. Leaving valuables on the outer perimeter was strictly forbidden. This deprived outsiders of any incentive to simply walk up and take the property. To seize resources, one had to penetrate the most secure part of the encampment. Such a risk deterred many looters. This circular formation created an ideal safe zone for every resident. Penetrating the camp unnoticed was practically an impossible task. The structure of the settlement itself served as reliable armor on the nighttime prairie. How effective do you think such a circular defense is in the open steppe? In the next chapter, you'll learn how the unique design of the doors in Iroquois longhouses turned them into impregnable fortresses. Something you've never seen before was hidden beneath the bark of the massive structures of the northeastern forests. The peoples of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy built monumental longhouses from thick tree trunks. These structures reached tens of meters in length and housed many families. A thick layer of elm or cedar bark provided excellent protection from the elements. At night, these enormous buildings became isolated and secure capsules. The doors in the longhouses were complex and heavy structures. They were made of thick layers of bark reinforced with a wooden frame. From the inside, the doors were securely fastened with thick wooden bolts or heavy logs. It was impossible to push such a barrier open from the outside without making a loud noise. The sturdy doors served as the first physical barrier against any threat. The interior of the longhouse was divided into many compartments. Each family occupied its own separate niche on either side of the central passageway. These partitions created a sort of labyrinth inside the large room. A stranger who managed to get inside would inevitably get lost in this layout. Moving in the dark among the many compartments was always accompanied by noise. The central passageway was lit by a row of small fires burning all night. These fires not only provided warmth, but also created a curtain of light. Anyone walking through the passageway would inevitably be exposed to the light. Meanwhile, the people in their sleeping niches remained in the safety of the shadows. This distribution of light gave the house's defenders a tremendous advantage. Sleeping quarters were located on high wooden platforms along the walls. This protected people from the nighttime cold rising from the damp ground. Being elevated also provided a tactical advantage in the event of a sudden intrusion. The defenders were higher than the attacker and could control the situation. The wooden platforms concealed the sleepers from direct view from the central passageway. Smoke vents in the roof served as excellent ventilation shafts. They also provided the fresh air needed to keep the fire burning. At night, these openings could be partially covered with pieces of bark. This retained heat inside and prevented precipitation from entering. From the outside, the longhouse appeared to be a completely enclosed monolith without a single window. Tall wooden palisades were often erected around the longhouses. Tree trunks were dug firmly into the ground and sharpened at the top. Such palisades could consist of several rows for maximum security. The inner courtyard between the houses and the palisades served as an additional buffer zone. Overcoming this multi-layered defense required incredible effort and time. The forest surrounding the settlement was deliberately cleared for a considerable distance. This prevented outsiders from approaching the walls unnoticed. The open space was clearly visible to sentries from watchtowers on the palisade. Stumps from felled trees were often left in the ground to hinder rapid movement. The night forest remained at a safe distance from the sleeping people. The architecture of the longhouses was a masterpiece of wooden architecture in its time. Every detail of the interior and exterior served the common goal of survival. People slept in warmth and safety, protected by thick walls and a complex layout. Please like this video if you're interested in the engineering solutions of ancient cultures. What was found in the old archives completely changes our understanding of night watches. The camp's security was never left to chance, despite all the natural barriers and the camp's advantageous location. Every night, special patrols were sent out, consisting of the most experienced and battle-hardened warriors. These patrols operated under strict rules that completely ruled out any chance encounters or surprise attacks. They became the eyes and ears of the entire tribe during the hours when everyone else was resting peacefully. The safety of their fellow tribesmen was the highest law and the greatest honor for these guards. Every man on patrol wore traditional clothing, familiar to many from classic films about cowboys and Indians. Long leather shirts with very thick and abundant fringe served a vital camouflage function in the night forest. This fringe visually broke up the distinct human silhouette, blurring it against the backdrop of the night sky. Wide leather pants reliably protected the sentry's legs from thorny bushes and cold night dew. Such attire allowed a person to blend almost completely into the dense shadows of the surrounding prairie. In the darkness, the warrior became an invisible ghost who always remained on guard. The sentries moved along the perimeter in complete silence thanks to the use of special soft footwear. Soft leather moccasins without stiff soles allowed the warrior to literally feel every tiny pebble on the ground with the soles of his feet. The sentry shifted his body weight very carefully, skillfully avoiding dry branches and rustling leaves. His steps were more like a smooth glide, leaving not a single unnecessary sound behind. In the deep darkness, such a patrolman remained completely invisible and inaudible even to the most alert enemy. The ability to walk silently was practiced by hunters from early childhood. Thin but strong ropes were often used to quickly transmit important information over long distances. They were stretched in advance between hidden posts located along the entire outer perimeter of the camp. A light, rhythmic tug on such a rope signaled an immediate alert to the neighboring sentry. For example, two sharp tugs could signal that suspicious movement had been spotted in the tall grass. This covert communication system worked flawlessly and did not disturb the general silence of the night at all. The sentries could warn each other of danger while remaining completely invisible to the enemy. On bright moonlit nights, the guards actively used a system of complex hand gestures and signals. A sharp wave of the hand or a specific body position conveyed clear and understandable commands to their comrades. These signals were clearly visible against the backdrop of the bright horizon or the pale night grass. They completely replaced any verbal commands that could easily give away the location of the hidden post. The sentries managed to communicate in full sentences without uttering a single sound. Such silent coordination allowed them to operate as a single, well-coordinated unit. The changing of the guard in the camp always took place according to a strict and predetermined schedule. The warriors determined the start time of the shift with remarkable precision based on the position of the stars in the night sky. The handover itself was carried out in absolute silence through a light touch on the shoulder of the replacement. This ensured constant vigilance in the camp without any loss of concentration. The fatigue of one experienced sentry was always promptly offset by the fresh energy of his comrade. Thus, the ring of protection around the sleeping people never weakened until dawn. The patrols often chose dominant high ground or the crowns of the tallest trees for observation. This gave them the widest possible view of the surroundings and allowed them to spot any movement from a distance. Being at a great height, the sentry usually remained out of reach of accidental detection by the enemy. The dark silhouette of a person in a tree blended completely with the trunk and numerous branches. From above, the guards had a complete and clear view of everything happening around their camp. They could see a threat approaching long before it became dangerous. The warriors' camouflage was perfected using readily available natural materials. Their faces and all exposed parts of their bodies were covered with thick ash or dark coastal clay. This completely eliminated any natural sheen of the skin in the light of the bright moon or distant stars. A sentry in such makeup became virtually indistinguishable from a tree trunk or a large moss-covered boulder. Incredible patience allowed these people to remain absolutely motionless for hours in any position. They became part of the landscape itself, merging with nature into a single whole. The coordinated and precise work of the night patrols was the main guarantee of a peaceful night's sleep for the entire tribe. They created a living and reliable shield around the camp, which complemented the architectural and natural barriers. Their high level of professionalism was honed over many years of rigorous training and constant practice in harsh conditions. Could you maintain absolute concentration in complete darkness for hours on end? In the next chapter, you'll learn how they coped with extreme weather and severe nighttime frosts. The peoples of the subarctic faced threats of a completely different and extremely dangerous nature on a daily basis. During the harsh winter months, the biting night cold became their primary and most ruthless enemy. Air temperatures could drop to critical levels, turning any minor mistake into a real tragedy. All dwellings of the indigenous peoples were constructed with the need to maximize the retention of precious heat in mind. The winter camp of these northern tribes was a true triumph of human adaptation to an extreme environment. Every aspect of daily life here was thought out down to the smallest detail for the sake of survival. A very thick layer of tightly packed snow served as the reliable foundation for any winter shelter. Snow is simply an excellent natural insulator thanks to the millions of air bubbles within its structure. Traditional dwellings were lined with massive snow blocks or simply covered on all sides with a thick layer of snowdrifts. This created a strong and reliable barrier between the internal heat and the fierce external cold. The snow dome completely blocked the icy wind, allowing a stable and comfortable temperature to be maintained inside. Even during the most severe blizzards, it remained quiet and calm inside such a dwelling. The entrance to such a winter dwelling was almost always designed as a long and very narrow tunnel. This tunnel was located significantly below the floor level of the main living area. Cold air, being heavy by nature, simply accumulated in this depression and did not penetrate further. This temperature trap was a truly ingenious engineering solution by ancient builders. By making their way through this tunnel into the house, people effectively left all the bitter cold outside. This simple physics allowed people to avoid letting cold air into their homes every time they entered or exited. The indoor microclimate in such houses was maintained with remarkable precision and enviable stability. Heat from a very small central hearth was evenly distributed throughout the entire interior space of the dome. The warm, dry air always rose upward, creating the most comfortable zone for people to sleep. Several layers of thick animal skins on the floor served as additional insulation against the frozen ground. Inside such a properly constructed snow house, one could stay for a long time without heavy outerwear. This allowed people to fully rest and regain their strength after a hard day. Special sleepwear was made only from the densest and incredibly warm materials. Men wore loose-fitting shirts sewn from carefully tanned hides with the fur facing inward. The long fringe on the sleeves of such garments created additional air pockets to better retain body heat. Wide, deep hoods reliably protected the sleeper's head and neck from any accidental drafts. These outfits provided a personal and very cozy cocoon of warmth for every family member. Dressed in such attire, a person had nothing to fear, not even the sharpest drops in temperature outside the home. To ensure proper ventilation, a small round opening was always left right in the center of the ceiling. Its size was strictly regulated by the person on duty depending on the current wind strength and outdoor temperature. An opening that was too large could very quickly cool the entire room, depriving people of warmth. A hole that was too small risked a dangerous buildup of carbon monoxide from the burning hearth. Maintaining a constant balance between the inflow of fresh air and retained heat was a matter of life and death for Northerners. The skill of properly adjusting the vent was passed down from generation to generation as essential knowledge. Maintaining a steady fire at night was the most important and responsible task of daily life. In every family, a special person was assigned to keep watch, carefully monitoring the condition of the embers in the hearth. The fire must not blaze too brightly, lest it accidentally melt the snow dome of the dwelling. The slow and steady smoldering of dry wood provided the necessary amount of safe heat for the entire night. Watch duty at the hearth was always rotated so that every adult could get some sleep before the hunt. Fire in these parts was considered a sacred gift, the very source of life. Absolutely every crack in any possible source of drafts was very carefully caulked with moss or dry grass. Even the slightest stream of icy air could lead to serious hypothermia among the sleeping people. A thorough check of the dwelling's airtightness was conducted by the head of the family every evening before going to sleep. Snow blocks on the outside of the house were often doused with water to create a solid crust of ice. This hard icy shell reliably protected the dwelling from destruction, even by the strongest and longest blizzards. In the morning, the entire camp woke up slowly, trying to hold on to the warmth generated during the night for as long as possible. The winter camps of the northern peoples were a prime example of the ideal symbiosis between humans and this harsh natural environment. A deep understanding of the laws of thermodynamics allowed people to survive successfully in the most extreme conditions on the planet. Snow, which usually brought death to the unprepared traveler, became here the chief savior and protector. The icy wastelands always yielded only to those who knew how to understand and use their harsh laws. What lies behind the beautiful picture of a snow-covered camp conceals a harsh calculation. Fire was a source of life, but at night it could become the greatest traitor. A bright flame attracted unwanted attention from great distances. Managing campfires after dark required immense skill and caution. The camp had to remain invisible to prying eyes. The main rule was to use only very dry wood. Damp firewood produced thick smoke that was barely visible in the moonlight. The smoke also gave away the camp's location with its distinctive smell. Dry branches from deciduous trees burned evenly and produced almost no smoke trail. Gathering the right fuel was a daily routine. Fires for warmth were often placed in specially dug pits. These pits concealed the flames from direct view from the side. The heat rose upward, warming the people, but the source of light itself remained invisible. Such hidden hearths created heat shields without visual exposure. From a distance, the camp appeared completely dark and lifeless. Heated stones were used to retain heat until morning. In the evening, large smooth river boulders were placed in the fire. When they were red hot, they were removed and placed in the center of the dwelling. The stones gave off their heat for hours without emitting any light. This method allowed the open fire to be completely extinguished for the night. Before bedtime, the embers in the hearth were carefully covered with a layer of ash. The ash cut off the oxygen supply, causing the embers to smolder slowly inside. In the morning, it was enough to rake away the ash and add dry grass to quickly start a fire. This method conserved a valuable resource and prevented accidental fires. The camp remained safe from internal fires. The thick leather covers of the teepee reliably blocked out the interior light. If a small fire burned inside, the tent remained dark on the outside. The seams where the hides joined were carefully overlapped. Any gap letting in light was immediately sewn shut or covered with a blanket. Light concealment was observed just as strictly as the rule of silence. Movement around the camp at night took place without the use of torches. People grew accustomed to navigating in the dark by memory and touch. The use of open fire to light the way was strictly forbidden. Eyes quickly adapted to the dim light of the stars and the moon. The absence of artificial lighting increased the overall safety of the entire settlement. At sunrise, the campfires were rekindled with renewed vigor. The morning smoke no longer posed the same danger as the night smoke. Daylight concealed the flickering flames, restoring the camp's familiar rhythm of life. Strict control over the element of fire demonstrated a high level of self-discipline. Fire served the people rather than betraying their secrets to outsiders. This system of light camouflage had been perfected to the point of becoming second nature. Darkness was no longer an enemy, but the sleeping tribe's most reliable ally. The knowledge of how to conceal heat and light saved countless lives. How long could you maintain warmth without an open flame? In the next chapter, you will learn about the invisible obstacles on forest trails. Physical barriers around the camp did not require massive construction or earthworks. The Indians used the surrounding vegetation to create effective barriers. On the approaches to the camp, the trails were artificially narrowed or completely blocked. They used flexible young trees, which they bent and wove together. This created a resilient barrier that was impossible to pass through without making a sound. Special attention was paid to dense, thorny shrubs. Branches of blackberry or wild rose were carefully carried and laid along potential approach routes. The sharp thorns caught on the clothing and equipment of anyone passing by. Any attempt to free oneself from these thorns inevitably caused a loud rustling of leaves. Such thorny barriers functioned as natural barbed wire. Hidden tripwires made of thin roots were often strung across a narrow forest pass. These invisible strands were positioned at ankle height in the darkest spots. A person walking in the dark could not notice such an obstacle. Losing one's balance led to a fall and a loud noise. The sentries reacted instantly to the sound of a falling body in the night forest. On rocky sections, unstable scree slopes were artificially created. Fine gravel and flat stones were arranged so that they would slide away at the slightest pressure. A step onto such a section caused a loud grinding of stones rubbing against each other. Regaining balance on the loose surface was extremely difficult. These sound traps blocked the approaches from the steep slopes. Natural fords across streams were also subjected to engineering modifications. Slippery logs or sharp stones were placed on the bottom. Wading across at night became a dangerous and noisy undertaking. Splashes of water echoed throughout the gorge, alerting the camp. Water became a natural ally in the overall defense system. The trails leading directly to the campsites were often made winding. This deprived strangers of a direct view of the camp from a distance. An ambush or a new trap could be lurking around every bend. The winding path forced travelers to slow their pace and lose confidence in their direction. The labyrinth of forest trails disoriented any uninvited guest. Setting up such barriers required excellent knowledge of botany and the landscape. All changes were made to look as natural as possible. An untrained eye could not distinguish an artificial barricade from a fallen tree. The secrecy of the setup was the main condition for the effectiveness of these traps. Nature itself became the chief engineer and defender. In the morning, the camp's inhabitants could easily dismantle part of the barriers to clear a path. By evening, all the traps were returned to their original combat positions. This daily ritual ensured the perimeter was always ready for the night. Physical obstacles were complemented by acoustic barriers, creating a layered defense. The camp turned into an impregnable fortress, blending seamlessly with the forest. The ground beneath their feet served not only as a foundation, but also as a massive sensor. Indigenous peoples understood that the soil excellently transmits any vibrations. The approach of a group of people or heavy equipment could be sensed long before they became visible. Sleeping on the ground had not only practical, but also profound tactical significance. The human body became a sensitive seismic detector. People often slept with their ear pressed directly against the hard ground. This allowed them to detect low-frequency vibrations traveling through the soil. The rhythmic thud of footsteps on the ground carried over vast distances. An experienced tracker could distinguish the vibration of a falling tree from the measured march of a detachment. The earth told stories to those who knew how to listen to it. In some settlements, special wooden platforms were used for sleeping. Dry wood, pressed tightly against the ground, acted as an acoustic membrane. Soil vibrations were transmitted to the wood, amplified several times over. A person lying on such a platform could feel the slightest vibrations throughout their entire body. This made it possible to detect movements even on soft, sandy ground. Observers at the posts also used seismic monitoring methods. They would dig long, dry sticks into the ground and press their chins against them. The wooden rod transmitted micro vibrations directly to the bones of the skull. This method sharpened perception and allowed for the filtering out of background wind noise. The sentry became one with the surrounding terrain. They watched for ripples in puddles or in specially placed wooden bowls of water. The water's surface is an ideal indicator of the slightest vibrations in the Earth's crust. The appearance of concentric circles on the water's surface served as a sure sign of approaching heavy objects. This visual method complemented the sentry's bodily sensations. Water functioned as a hypersensitive, natural instrument. The ability to recognize the nature of vibrations required many years of practice. One had to clearly understand the difference between a man's footsteps and a falling rock. Different types of soil transmitted signals at varying speeds and intensities. Rocky ground conducted sound better than loose forest litter. This knowledge was passed down from elders to younger members during training. Seismic observation was particularly effective on moonless and foggy nights. When sight became useless, touch came to the fore. The camp's defenders relied on their instincts and bodily sensitivity. It was impossible to approach the camp without leaving a vibrational trace on the ground. This method of detection was not dependent on weather conditions. In these practices, the fusion of man with nature reached its zenith. The earth was perceived as a living organism, warning its children of danger. Using the ground as a radar made a surprise attack virtually impossible. The camp was always ready to receive uninvited guests. Moving around the camp at night was a true art, requiring a person to have phenomenal spatial memory. The use of any artificial lighting, as we have already established, was strictly limited by safety rules. The camp's inhabitants had to be able to move in complete darkness without the slightest risk of bumping into obstacles. Every member of the tribe memorized the camp layout from the very earliest years of life. Muscle memory completely replaced vision on those moonless nights when the prairie was plunged into impenetrable darkness. An experienced resident sensed the layout of his settlement with his entire body. Every adult man knew exactly how many steps it took from the entrance to his dwelling to the very center of the camp. These important routes were carefully measured in advance and always remained clear of any foreign objects. A basket left in the passageway, or even a small bundle of firewood, was considered a very serious violation of the general order. The pathways within the settlement were kept immaculately clean for the safety of everyone. This allowed people to move with quick, confident strides, even with their eyes tightly shut. The clear organization of the space was vital to the community's nightlife. Orientation in space often relied on the direction of the wind blowing directly into a person's face or back. The local wind rose was quite stable, providing people with a reliable natural compass in absolute darkness. The sensation of a light, cool breeze on the right cheek could clearly indicate the direction of north. This subtle, tactile perception of the surrounding space helped ensure they never strayed from the right path between dwellings. The wind effectively replaced the needle of the compass we are familiar with for all nighttime travelers. Nature itself pointed the way to those who knew how to listen to it carefully. The familiar silhouettes of tents against the starry sky also served as excellent landmarks for navigation. The distinctive outlines of the tall tent poles helped quickly determine one's exact location in the camp. Even on the darkest night, the sky always remained slightly lighter than the Earth's surface. The experienced eye of a nomad could easily make out the familiar outline of a dwelling amid the thick shadows of the night. The eyesight of people in those days was remarkably adapted to minimal natural light. Their eyes quickly adjusted to the twilight, discerning details where a stranger would see only darkness. The texture of the ground beneath their feet also provided people with vital navigational information along the way. An instant transition from soft grass to hard, trampled earth signaled the entrance to the settlement's main trail. A rocky or sandy stretch of the path often indicated the approach to the communal supply storage area. Feet in soft leather moccasins read the terrain's contours like a unique tactile map. The ground literally guided a person to the desired destination without a single word or unnecessary noise. Every step provided a new piece of information about exactly where the traveler was. The technique of silent walking was used not only by professional sentries, but also by all the ordinary camp residents. The foot was placed on the ground as smoothly as possible, starting from the outer edge of the foot and smoothly transitioning to the heel. This allowed for complete control over the pressure on the ground and skillfully avoided the crunch of dry branches underfoot. From the outside, moving through the camp resembled a slow and graceful dance in the darkness of night. Strict silence was observed by everyone every night without exception. Any sudden noise could be interpreted as a danger signal for everyone nearby. Proper avoidance of shadows was another unshakable rule of any nighttime movement. On bright moonlit nights, people tried to move only along the dark sides of dwellings so as not to reveal themselves. Venturing into open, illuminated spaces was permitted only in cases of absolute necessity. Complete dissolution into the thick darkness was the main guarantee of the tribe's personal and communal safety. The camp lived its own secret nocturnal life, which remained completely invisible to any outside observer. Camouflage was part of everyday life, not merely a military tactic. Their mastery of spatial orientation made the camp's inhabitants completely independent of external light sources. They felt confident in conditions where a modern person would be completely helpless. Darkness was their natural habitat, not a frightening or hostile unknown. A deep knowledge of every inch of their camp gave the people a huge tactical advantage over the enemy. Confidence in their movements allowed them to remain calm in any unforeseen situation. Even the most perfect defense system could, in reality, face a superior and insurmountable force. For this critical situation, the tribe always had a detailed plan for a nighttime evacuation. The departure from the camp had to be carried out swiftly, and most importantly, absolutely silently. Each family knew exactly what to do at the first alarm signal. Any panic was completely ruled out thanks to strict discipline and regular group drills. Coordinated action was the only chance for the survival of all community members. Emergency escape routes were planned by the leaders as soon as any new camp was established. These hidden trails usually led to the most impassable sections of the forest or high into the mountains. The evacuation routes never coincided with main roads or well-known trade trails. They often ran through the beds of small rivers or rocky scree slopes to avoid leaving clear traces. Knowledge of these secret routes was a secret known only to trusted members of the tribe. The enemy must never guess which direction the people had disappeared in. Gathering the most essential items took place in complete darkness and took literally a matter of minutes. All critically important supplies, weapons, and warm clothing were always kept in their strictly designated places. A man would grab a pre-prepared bundle of gear and immediately head outside to protect his family. Not a single second of precious time was wasted searching for any lost items or jewelry. The entire organization of daily life was originally designed to enable an instant and organized retreat. People's lives were valued far above any accumulated possessions. The departure from the camp was carried out in organized groups under a regime of complete and strict silence. People literally vanished into the night prairie, moving in single file for perfect concealment of their movement. The last person in the line carefully covered all traces with a wide branch or a piece of hide. If the path crossed a stream bed, the footsteps in the water reliably concealed their direction of travel from pursuers. The abandoned camp remained completely empty, even before outsiders had a chance to enter its territory. Speed and stealth were the nomads' main assets in this dangerous game. People always made active use of any weather conditions to provide reliable cover for their retreat. A sudden downpour or strong wind became the perfect natural backdrop for an evacuation. The roar of the raging elements reliably masked the sound of footsteps, and the water quickly washed away any footprints on the ground. Nature itself seemed to erase any trace of the tribe's presence in that specific territory. The fugitives retreated deep into the steppe, under the reliable cover of a night storm or thick fog. The elements transformed from an enemy into a faithful ally, concealing people from their pursuers. An essential element of the overall plan was always a pre-selected gathering point in a safe location. This temporary shelter was usually situated a considerable distance from the abandoned camp, deep within the forest. Scattered groups would converge there one by one, constantly checking to ensure they were not being followed or pursued. The gathering point was chosen to provide an excellent view of the entire route the people had traveled. There, the tribe could finally regroup, rest, and calmly assess their next steps. The security of the gathering point was key to preserving the unity of the entire people. The success of the evacuation depended entirely on the ironclad coordination of every single person's actions. A complete renunciation of material possessions in favor of saving the lives of fellow tribespeople was the absolute priority. The abandoned heavy tents and house frames could easily be rebuilt in the new location. Preserving the tribe's structure and traditions was far more important than any accumulated household items. This pragmatic and austere approach ensured people's survival in the most desperate situations. Family and knowledge were the possessions that could not be left to the enemy. The ability to vanish suddenly into the night made these northern peoples truly elusive to any invaders. Their security was based not on holding mighty stone fortresses, but on mobility and knowledge of the environment. A camp abandoned in haste instantly turned into an empty shell, of no value whatsoever. Could you leave your home and all your possessions behind to save your family in a single night? This question forces us to take a fresh look at the true values and resilience of ancient peoples. We have examined only a small fraction of the remarkable nighttime safety rules used by the indigenous peoples of North America. Their defense was not built on stone walls, but on a profound understanding of the laws of nature, physics, and psychology. They turned the landscape itself, the wind, and the darkness into their most reliable allies. This security system was flexible, invisible, and incredibly effective. Every detail of the camp, from the dry grass along the perimeter to the complex layout of the longhouses, was dedicated to a single goal: survival. These people proved that true safety lies in harmony with the environment, not in attempts to isolate oneself from it. Their methods of surveillance and camouflage still amaze with their ingenuity. Suggest topics for future videos you'd like to see on our channel in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss new videos.